Welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name's Rich Merritt, your host. And today I hope we have a very good show for you. That remains to be seen, and you'll be the judge, but we'll see. I'm changing my format a little bit as far as Jerry DeLemus is concerned. I'd just simply like to ask President Trump to pardon him. The man's been in jail for way too long. He shouldn't be in jail at all, but it's been over 2.5 years and counting. So I'm asking the president to pardon him. And if anything, send your letters to him and ask the same. The man deserves to be out of jail. Secondarily, I'd like to say that we still need support on the National Liberty Alliance front, at the very least to get the booklets out to the sheriff, because the sheriffs in this country do not know the law. They know what judges and lawyers tell them, but they do not know the law. And that's my contention. So we need these books printed and sent out to them. Thank you for that. Go to the nationallibertyalliance.org and help them out the best you can. Okay, to start off the show, this is, what is today? November 7th, 2018, day after Election Day. And we're going to show you today the winners and the losers in the election. But the first thing I'd like to tell you is that we've become a great nation of haters. Democrats and Republicans hate one another. Liberals and conservatives hate one another. Blacks and white hates one another. Heterosexual, homosexual. It just goes on and on. We can't stand one another. Let's kill one another. Persecute one another. This is what Americans have become. It used to be that America was free thinking and actually admired people who thought differently than you. That's what the freedom was about. You're free to think whatever you want to think. Well, after the election and the fights are over, I would like to show you right now who is the winner and who is the loser. I would ask you, please, to pay attention to this video we're going to show you. Thank you.
Good morning. What we're going to be talking about today is what I've called the biggest game in town. My name is Walter Burian. I live in Prescott, Arizona. I became aware of something approximately 10 years ago, which changed my life. I'll give you a little analogy of how I learned about the complete financial takeover of the wealth of this country by composite government. Back in 1989, I lived in New Jersey. There was a governor by the name of Jim Florio who was running for office under a no new tax platform. He won, and as soon as he got into office, a $2.8 billion tax increase was enacted, the largest in the state's history. It's obvious that the public was not too thrilled about Mr. Florio's actions, and one of the local radio stations, 101.5 FM, started doing some rabble-rousing, taking calls from listeners on examples of waste and misspending in government. In the first 2 days I was listening, and I heard people calling in with examples of 5,000, 15,000, 85,000 was the highest figure I heard. I pulled out the State of New Jersey's budget report, which is the only thing I was aware of at that time. They had $11 billion on budget, $6 billion off budget. The total annual service budget was $17 billion a year. I called into the show and I made the comment, come on guys, you're missing the whole point. The highest figure I heard was 85,000. The state's dealing with billions of dollars. I read off the figures. I said if there's fraud, waste, and misspending taking place, it's taking place on tunes of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. The DJ at that time challenged us, the listeners, to start a tax protest organization to repeal the $2.8 billion tax increase. 10 of us got together the next day. I incorporated a group called Hands Across New Jersey. We scheduled our first rally 10 days out from that point, and basically, with the help of 101.5, we had 115,000 people converge on Trenton from all the shore points in New Jersey, effectively shutting the city down. Now, during the course of organizing that rally, I took over looking at the budget, revenue, and finance of the state. And I have been approximately, for about 15 years, I was a commodity trading advisor. I was one of the first tenants of the World Trade Center back in 1979. And large figures did not bother me. $100 million and $1, there was no difference. So when I started looking at the figures on the New Jersey budget report, as I mentioned, there were $11 billion on budget, $6 billion off budget. It showed a net available of $25.6 billion. But then I asked myself the number one question that IRS asks in an audit: what are the cash gross receipts? And I started noticing the large cash cow groups in state government, the New Jersey Turnpike, Garden State Parkway, Port Authority, New York, New Jersey. The revenue was not inclusive in the budget report. I didn't see any large returns from investment funds on the budget report. And I said, they have to have two sets of books here. They're not accounting for the whole picture. The director of the budget at that time was an individual by the name of Richard Keevy. He was on vacation till the following Tuesday of that week. I found out who his lower assistant was, called in, and the conversation went just like this. I said, hi, this is Walter Burian. I'm working on a report for Richard. I have to have it done by Tuesday when he gets back from vacation. I need all the figures on the autonomous agency accounts, interest accounts, investment accounts. And the reply I got was, oh, you want the comprehensive annual financial report. Bing. First time I ever heard that before in my lifetime. Got it that Friday. Started crunching numbers. It showed total liquid investment funds of $188 billion. $188 billion. Of which common stock ownership $70 billion, on loan to public and private corporations $10 billion, insurance company equity participation $14 billion, on loan to public and private corporations $10 billion, and I started looking for the total cash gross receipts, as I mentioned, what IRS would ask for in an audit. I found it on page 174. Now this is 1989's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. On page 174 under cash additions, all agencies, all departments, all sources. Here's a state with a declared service budget of $17 billion who was bringing in $86,799 million in cash. I saw that figure and instantly realized the definition of syndicated organized crime. Here we had a representation to the public that the state of New Jersey was bringing in $17 billion, when in reality they were bringing in close to $86 billion. They had $188 billion in liquid investment funds. And I also learned the principle of operation that day. Anything that was a cost and an expense, traditional service side of the budget report, health and welfare, human services, motor vehicles, was left under the budgetary basis, and the public footed 100% of the bill for 100% of the services. Now, anything that was a profit center had the ability of being a profit center, large investment fund that generated tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, totally restricted by statute for no tie or inclusion whatsoever with the budgetary basis. Now, this is what I've called the biggest game in town. I saw it first in New Jersey, and I said the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Here I am, a commodity trading advisor. I was doing a national news line coast to coast at the time. Never heard of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I wanted to find out why. I was mad. I mean, there was such a distinct difference between the revenue on the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and the minuscule revenue that was shown now on the budgetary basis. I said, why did I did not see this on a newspaper, radio show, TV show? Now, the department that mailed out the report, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, was from the Department of Treasury. I called the mailroom, and the mailroom usually doesn't get a call from the public, so they were very cooperative. I wanted to find out who the report was sent to. I thought it was a short list. They said, I'm sorry, sir, the list is too long. We can't read it to you on the phone. So I started qualifying. I found out it was sent to every editor of every paper on the East Coast. It was sent to the deans of all of the colleges. It was sent to the CEO and every one of the directors from ABC, CBS, NBC. When I verified that, I started smelling cooperative effort for non-disclosure. I then got the telephone number from ABC and NBC where the report was sent to. I called, and the conversation went just like this. Hi, this is Walter Burian calling from the Department of Treasury. We've been sending you our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the last 14 years, and we're doing a logistical survey on how many other states are sending you their reports. Could you please tell me? ABC was getting it from 36 states, NBC was getting it from 34 states. When I heard that, now I'm getting very mad. I'm starting to see a clear-cut cooperative effort for non-disclosure on the most important information that exists in this country, period. The extent of the financial takeover of composite government of this country, the wealth of this country, with the cooperation of the syndicated media for non-disclosure. My next step was I called New York, got New York's comprehensive annual financial report, which showed approximately about $735 billion in liquid investment funds. I then got the City of Manhattan's report. Now, when I mention the comprehensive annual financial report, it's not just the state. The majority of all cities, counties, school districts, pension funds, autonomous agencies, such as the New Jersey Turnpike or New York Thruway Authority, put out a comprehensive annual financial report. When I got Manhattan's report, it showed liquid investment funds of $1.2 trillion, more than the entire state. My mind started getting boggled as to, thinking of the composite totals for all the states, all of the cities, all of the counties. Subsequently, over the last 10 years, I've been factoring in and compiling the aspect of composite totals. The current figure stands at about $60 trillion plus in liquid investment funds. The composite totals for all cities, counties, states, and the federal government. Now, the viewers of this show would say, "Whoa, wait a second here. I thought we were in debt for the state, in debt for our school district, or in debt for the federal government." Well, let me explain something. I'm going to give you the biggest wake-up call in your life. This example holds true all across the country for every city, county, and state, and the federal government. You always hear the budgetary basis referenced, the budget report, the budget report. Now, I'll use this one example. Say, for example, you are making $100,000 a year, and your budget for operating your house is $20,000 a year. You could audit your budget 100 times over, account for every nickel, dime, and penny on your budget report. If you spent $19,000 this year, you'd have $1,000 surplus. If you spent $21,000 this year, you'd have a $1,000 deficit. Now, in reality, if you decided you wanted to spend $30,000 this year on your budget for operating your house, would you go knocking on your neighbor's door saying, "Hey, John, I had $20,000 allocated to operate my budget, but I spent $30,000. Can I borrow $10,000?" No, you'd pull from your $100,000 salary. Governments across this country, on the city, county, state level, and federal, have created a two-tier accounting structure. One, the annual operating budget, the cost side of operating government for the year, the monies they bring in for the year to handle that cost and what they expend. What's being left out is the decades of investment wealth, enterprise ventures, which generate hundreds of billions of dollars each year, which are not inclusive in the budgetary basis. Government has turned into a financial empire across the board. And the public basically allowed the foxes to write the laws on how many hens they could eat from the hen house. And of course, foxes being foxes, they've eaten all the hens. When you start looking at composite totals of revenue, basically, when you look at composite totals of revenue and compare it to the private sector, government currently now is substantially bigger than the private sector. We're standing at about 65% government, 35% the private sector. Now, when you look at stocks, now as I mentioned, New Jersey I saw had $70 billion in common stock ownership. That floored me. I never even thought about New Jersey as a state owning $70 billion in stocks. Composite totals, city, county, state, and federal on stock ownership equates to approximately $32 trillion. That's over 53% of the entire open interest of all issued stocks from all exchanges is owned by composite government sources. You won't have one city or county or state owning a phenomenal base in one stock, but you'll have thousands of the different cities, counties, and states owning the composite totals. They own over 51%. So when you look at individual corporations, Xerox Corporation, IBM, AT&T, the primary owners are composite government funds, and it'll be listed as institutional funds. When you see the word institutional funds, that is government monies in most cases. So when you have a supposed public corporation, say 72% owned by composite government funds, I wouldn't call that a public corporation. I would say that's a government operation. Xerox is approximately 72% owned by composite government funds. AT&T is up around 42%, so on and so on. But The bottom line here is, when I learned this was a revelation that changed my life. Up until this point, when the comprehension finally dawned on me, prior to that, I always thought the government was maybe 5% of the GNP of this country, and this was a free market economy, and I learned I was wrong. Basically what the public has done here, I did this, you did this, we all have done this, we left the vault door open. In fact, 95% of the public would say, vault? What vault? And those sharp little crackers said, thank you very much, have a good day. Now, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, this is from Missouri. There's a total press blackout of the mentioning of the name of this report, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. This is Missouri's, that was 1997. This is Ohio's cover page for 1998. I have the state of Utah's 1998. I also have Washington's and Maryland's figures. Also, this is from the state of Arizona, the State of Arizona Retirement Fund Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for 1998, which I'll make some very interesting notations on. Now, the federal government. This is the federal government combined financial statement, the last page from the report. One notation, the federal government in 1981 mandated that all local governments prepare a comprehensive annual financial report, every city, every county, every state, or in the alternative, a combined financial statement if they did not prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. The background on the comprehensive annual financial report, a group by the name of GFOA, Government Financial Officers Association, in 1946 created the comprehensive annual financial reporting accounting structure. I think the city of Manhattan produced one of the first ones in 1951 as a large entity. So the comprehensive annual financial report has been around for quite a long time. There are 54,000 separate government corporations, cities, counties, school districts, authorities that produce their own separate report. That's 54,000. You start looking at the composite totals of the revenue from 54,000 reports, the cities, the counties, the states, and you see the $60 trillion inclusive with federal government's revenue. Now, about 5 months ago, I got a call from an individual by the name of Joe Long, who runs a group called the Federation of New Jersey Taxpayers. And he called me up on a Sunday morning and he goes, Walter, we just got New Jersey's 1998 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. They have $295 billion in liquid investment funds. Isn't that awful? And I said, Joe, you're just looking at the state report. There's 21 counties, a couple hundred cities and municipalities, autonomous agencies, all separate reports. If you take the composite totals of liquid investment funds, you're well in excess of $1.2 trillion. If you take the population of New Jersey and divide it by 1.2 trillion, that comes out to a cash allocation of $146,000 per man, woman, and child living in the state, or a family of four, $700 and some odd thousand. The obfuscation of the wealth has been excessive. But just one notation regarding the federal, because this is not just going on in the local governments, the city, counties, and state. The federal government's playing the exact same game. And I've noticed a lot of people always point the finger at the federal government as the bad guys, but when you break down the actual revenue of the $60 trillion, 2/3 of it belongs to the local governments, the city, counties, and states, and 1/3 belongs to the federal government. Now, I'm going to try to do a close-up shot on this one page here. Okay, here we have this is the last page from the federal combined financial statement. This is the appendix list of significant government entities included in the combined financial statement. Now, the majority of the items included, if we can scroll down the page here, Can we get a close-up there? Now, the majority that are included are agencies which most people are familiar with. If we go to the back here, this is the final listing of agencies that are included. But the last column, down below, it says significant entities excluded from these statements. I think we're on that. Now, they give honorary mention. They give honorary mention to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors and the Federal Reserve, which I think we all know by now are basically private. But then it lists the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, the Thrift Savings Plan, the Farm Credit System, the Federal Home Loan Banks, Financing Corporation, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Sallie Mae, Resolution Funding Corporation. These groups are the cash cow investment groups of government. Now, also, I want to make special note to 3 items that are listed at the bottom. We have the Army and Air Force Exchange Service, the Navy Exchange Service Command, the Marine Corps Exchange. Folks, this is not the PX. We have funding operations for the exchange of foreign troops into the U.S. troops on the foreign soil, which they kept separate from the combined financial statement of the federal government, so it wouldn't be so easily seen. But if we take the federal investment groups, the cash cow federal investment groups, and look at their revenue, and very important, they have a phenomenal amount of revenue on loan that's been loaned out there. If you take the accounts receivables and their current cash on hand, you come out to about a $16 trillion positive on the total operation. So here, even the federal government is taking their cost side, the expense side, leaving it on the combined financial statement. They call that their budgetary basis. But they've separated the cash cow investment groups of federal government so that they don't show on the budgetary basis. So currently the federal government shows a slight deficit on the budgetary basis, but the profit centers, which would show a $16 trillion positive, are excluded. Now, we started on national disclosure approximately 18 months ago on the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and the structure behind it. And I think a few of you may have heard on the network news the Fed saying, oh, by the way, we happen to find that we're going to have a $6 trillion surplus going into the year 2004. They mentioned a surplus, $6 trillion surplus. Keep in mind that $6 trillion surplus is on the budgetary basis. We're not including the cash cow investment agencies. If they were being 100% honest, inclusive of all revenue, the federal government would have approximately a $12 to $14 trillion surplus. And in fact, if they included the cash cow investment agencies in with a budgetary basis, they could probably have a 50% reduction across the board of all taxation on the federal side. Something to think about. Let's go back to the local governments. The states, the cities, the counties, they have their budgetary basis, the annual operating budget, but they have enterprise funds. Now, my little city of Prescott, Arizona, where I live, the city owns a golf course. Why does the city own a golf course? So the judges and the attorneys can get lower green fees? Here's a $45 million asset, which was paid for by taxpayer funds, developed, and not $1 goes back to support the budgetary basis. They have investment funds of sitting as idle funds, $48 million. Now, with this much money out there, this phenomenal base of wealth, empires that are being built, it was mandatory to keep the public oblivious to what was going on. If the public was aware this type of wealth was being built and obfuscated as tax dollars are being drained out of their pockets where people are citing a shortfall of budgetary revenue, there would have been an uprising 30 years ago. But the government, to perpetuate this game, They needed the 100% cooperation of the syndicated media. That they have. You will not see ABC, NBC saying, oh, by the way, we just happened to find out about the comprehensive annual financial report, and we found out that the budgetary basis is this big, but the revenue shown on the comprehensive annual financial report is this big. You will not see that happen. They have been in cooperative non-disclosure for 25 years. That's why the situation has taken place. It's mandatory to get the word out. It's mandatory to have your local radio show, your local TV show, call in, mention the comprehensive annual financial report. Depending upon what city, what county, what state you're looking at, the ratio of the budgetary basis, the annual service budget, to the reality of the total wealth usually ranges from a percentage of 8 to 1 to as high as 40 to 1 in the comparison between the budgetary basis and the reality of the wealth. It's not right. Now, a little in retrospect with what I've learned, it reminded me of something I was taught in grade school. I remember back in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, I'd hear a lot about Russia and how the control Russia had over the public was bad. Well, when you look at the financial takeover of the wealth by composite government in this country, it dwarfs the control Russia had in comparison based on that financial control. In fact, did you ever wonder why Gorbachev went democratic? He looked and he said, hey, the boys in the United States have more control than we do, and they're making 10 times as much. I had a federal auditor of 30 years. I briefed him 8 months ago. He was in charge of auditing one of the largest federal agencies in the country and also 8 of the central western states prior to his retirement. He was always looking at individual budget reports, the individual leaves, branches, and trees in the forest. And I briefed him on the composite totals. Floored him. He looked, he verified, and 3 months later he made the comment to me. He goes, Walter, what we have here in this country is 100% communism under the guise of a free market capitalist system. He goes, the government owns everything. You know, the public is constantly complaining about higher tax.
All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that, but I wanted to make a couple of points. The reason that the government, was able to pull this off is because, if you remember, all the CAFR reports were sent to the media, ABC, NBC. Those people were purchasing common stock and making money off of it while me and you were left out in the dark. It's called conspiracy. Taking our money to do it. One of the other things I wanted to point out, especially here in New Hampshire, Governor Sununu took $10 million just within the past 6 months, I don't remember exactly when it was, and put it into the rainy day fund, which is the CAFR account for the state of New Hampshire, the corporate state of New Hampshire. When the new budget comes out, do yourself a favor. Now, and I can't verify this because it hasn't happened yet, I don't think you're going to find that $10 million in the budget. It's going to be over here in the CAFR side of the ledger that me and you don't know about. And when I checked the CAFR account in 2014, I did it with a senator up north who helped me, or rather verified it with me. There was $160 million in the CAFR account, never reported in the budget whatsoever. And they've been putting money ever since. The other thing about Walter Burian is that report he just did is 10 to 15 years old. It's gotten a lot worse. The government owns most of the stock in the stock market. When they create statutes, whether on the state or federal level, it benefits corporate America, which benefits them. All this BS has been going on behind our backs. We don't know about it. If the American people don't wake up knowing this, then there's no hope for us. We deserve what we get. All I can say to that extent is I don't know what you need. I know people that are struggling in all income brackets because the middle class is being thinned out to nothing. And these people are stealing our money and smiling while they're doing it. Walter hit it right, organized crime ring. Anyway, if you want more verification, go to YouTube, look up Clint Richardson on CAFRs, and even better still, I like him better anyway, is Jerry Day on the CAFRs, and find out, CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Please share this. It's about time we wake up in America and do something about how we're being treated. Instead of hating one another, how about we work together and find out what our problems are? Thank you for watching this. Please share. Go to Facebook and like us, and go to YouTube and subscribe. Thank you very much, and have a good day.